We're rolling. Well, Michelle Wolf is here on her Emmy nomination tour. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Is that just so overwhelming and exciting for you?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I mean, I wrote for the Emmys when Seth hosted it a couple years ago, but I've never gone. Mm-hmm. I mean, I went when I wrote, but they put you in a basement with all the other writers.
Yeah. Have you broken your high heels for the red carpet?
Oh my God, I don't even know what I'm wearing yet. I have
you don't
no
even
idea.
know what you're wearing?
Yeah.
Do you have designers calling you saying, wear my dress or whatever?
Of course not.
No. Well, call her. She's free to take your dress. So as a comic, when you walk into a room like this, you're obviously not on stage. You're doing an interview. So do you feel pressure to kind of be on and be funny all the time?
I feel like everyone wants comics to be funny all the time. If I'm not on stage, I'm pretty boring. I'm not.
So you're okay. You're like, this is just me.
Yeah.
Why do you think it's so important to laugh now in this climate in 2018?
You gotta laugh. If you don't laugh, I don't know what you're doing. There's too much serious stuff happening. And, if you can make the worst thing in the world funny, good. Great job. It's very hard to do.
So is it kind of therapeutic for you to kind of deal with all the heavy news that happens every day?
I try not to watch too much news because for me, it always makes me happier to make a joke. Mm-hmm. It's how I get through everything. Mm-hmm.
How do you think comedy has changed and the line for comics changed since President Trump came into the office?
Well, he's definitely made comedy harder because everything seems sort of dire right now. Mm-hmm. And so it's harder to make people laugh, I think. Mm-hmm. And also, most Trump jokes are so hacky that, if you're going to do a joke about Trump, it's gotta be a new angle I haven't heard before. I don't want to hear anything about his orange skin or his hands or whatever. Now everyone's also everyone likes to use the excuse, I was just joking. And I'm like, no. We were joking. We are the comedians. If you're going to say you're just joking, then you better do bar shows and open mics for several years and then earn the credit of being called a comedian so that you can go and say, I was joking. Mm-hmm. It's that's our thing. We're joking.
You kind of go in on all these people and everyone. Is there ever a time where you thought, oh shit, I maybe went a little too far with that one and I feel bad, I might have hurt someone's feelings? Or you're like,
no.
No? Nothing keeps you up at night tossing and turning? You're like, it's my job and that's it?
Yeah, I mean, I would think they would have trouble sleeping, but I think they're probably soulless. So.
Yeah, Trump is busy tweeting. I don't even think he sleeps. But it's kind of an interesting time for women in the entertainment industry and Hollywood as a whole. So how do you think the role of women in comedy is evolving?
It's a great time for women to just share everything in their point of view. Mm-hmm. It's nice to finally be in an environment where people want to maybe listen to us. Mm-hmm. I think it's more about women gaining the confidence to actually go up there and say what they want to say, hopefully with a bunch of punchlines. It's not comedy if there's no punchlines. Then it's just a speech. It's really just about being more confident, and just get out there. Stop being scared of everything. It's not a time to be scared anymore.
So in the last couple of years, have you felt your confidence grown? Do you feel more confident being that woman at the table, giving your opinion? Anytime
I've written on any show, I'm always kind of the one that'll pitch 10 terrible jokes before I get to one good one. It's kind of my thing.
Well, at least you get it. You got one slam dunk. It doesn't matter how many times you shoot the ball, right?
Yeah, I always think that your best joke might be down here, so you gotta get all the bad ones out first. As a comedian, hopefully, as you go and you get more experience and you do shows in front of different kinds of people in different kinds of places, you get more and more confident. I mean, what's the worst thing that can happen? People don't laugh? Okay.
Yeah, what do you do when that happens? Is it a weird, I couldn't imagine being on stage and just hearing a pin drop.
It might take you 100 times of saying something until you find the way to say it that's funny. So there's plenty of times where you just say something and then you get no response and then you're like, all right, well, I'll try again next time.
See ya. Do you think female comics like yourself, Samantha Bee, Kathy Griffin, are held to a different standard to male comics, journalists, and even the president?
I think people are always surprised when a woman is not just pretty and polite. You know, like I think sometimes they're like, how could that come out of your mouth? And it's like, I don't know, we're just as gross and weird as you guys. So
There is a double standard.
yeah. I remember there's a book that was a long time ago. It was like Little Girls in Pretty Boxes. It's about gymnasts and ballerinas, but I always think of that for women. They always think we're little girls in pretty boxes. And I'm like, I don't know. I fart all the time.
You're human, I mean. But do you think like women are coming out of that now, are getting seen as more than just pretty girls in boxes?
I hope so, but that's really, it's up to us women to do that. It's up to us to defy what they think our standards are and to redefine our own stereotypes.
When you're on the road and when you're doing these stand-ups, do the men treat you differently at all, or do you think you've been treated with respect?
I always find in comedy that if you're funny, they respect you no matter who you are. I also realize that I'm coming from a place where I know there's plenty of women before me that had to like pave the path that I'm on now and had it much harder than I did. I mean, I've always found that, you know, people like good comedy and they'll respect you no matter what.
And speaking of the women coming before you, who were the kind of women you looked up to growing up and when you were starting your career in comedy?
I mean, I've always been a huge Carol Burnett fan.
Yes.
I love her so much. I loved it at the beginning of her show. She used to just go out and like take questions from the audience. And I remember seeing that and thinking like, oh, she's like not scared. But I mean, comics were weird because there's plenty of times when, you know, you'll make like a crowd laugh and we'll be like, they laughed too much. It was, you know, like...
I'm sorry, I didn't know you could laugh too much.
We're like, there'll be times when like they don't laugh enough, and then we'll be like, oh, it was a bad crowd, and then they'll laugh too much, and it was like, they were too easy. They should have been judging me more. Like,
So you're tough on the audience.
yeah, we are. Like, we'll never be happy.
And I want to talk about your weekly show for a minute. How hard is it to kind of do that every week? Because it seems like a tough job.
It's very tiring. All the shows I wrote for were daily shows, and I got a weekly show, and I was like, this is great. I'm gonna have so much more time. No, just having one show a week just means you work longer each day on that show. So it's like we were at the office all the time. I mean, I was there till like midnight almost every night. I think we got to a really fun place in the show where we definitely weren't chasing Trump. We were kind of have like a nice mix of political and kind of social things. In the last episode we did a long bit on crows having sex with dead crows, which is a real thing that happens. A new development in crows.
Crows have sex with dead crows?
Yeah. So we did like 8 minutes on that, which I don't...
How did you find that out? Like, how do you find out those little weird things?
Our head writer, Christine Nango, came in one day and she was like, guys, crows are having sex with dead crows. And then we were like, we was like, we gotta do something about this. And so we were just gonna put it in the monologue, and there were so many jokes about it. We were like, we gotta make this its own segment.
I love how many topics you do cover. This seems like nothing is off limits. But when you have those daily pitch meetings, is there things that you don't want to touch because you just think it's too depressing? I can't even make a joke about it.
I will make a joke about anything. It's just some of the level of difficulty. As the subject is more depressing, the level of difficulty of the joke increases. So it's just the matter of, can we make a joke funny enough about it? There was the one week when like kids were in cages, and I mean they still are, but when it was breaking, it was like, all right, how do we joke about kids being in cages? And we figured it out, but it's not easy. Because you don't want to like, you got to figure out the right people to target in those jokes. You don't want to target the kids. They're not the right target for the joke.
Well, you are funny, you are a comedian, but you are human too. So how do you kind of self-care during those days where you're just watching those news and you're ingesting it like the rest of us and you just like, you're feeling it? Like, how do you get over those humps and just think, I got to get on with it, this is my job?
Well, you kind of learn to like block out a lot of the nonsense. I think part of the problem and why it's so overwhelming is that it's not just the news is bad, it's being repeated on like a cycle. Like it's almost like Weather on the 8s or something like that, where it's just a constant barrage of like every bad thing that's happening, but over and over and over again. So you kind of just got to be like, all right, this is a story, this is a story, this is a story. I don't watch a lot of like CNN or MSNBC because it's just too much of a circus.
I mean, it's an oversaturation of negative news, obviously. So how do we as the media kind of change that? Like, do you think there is an issue going on right now that isn't getting enough attention?
Well, I mean, I said this at the end of the Correspondents dinner, but like Flint really still doesn't have clean water, like there's plenty of other issues that are happening rather than what like Trump tweeted and covering that for like 6 hours. It's like you can report on everything Trump did. You don't have to keep reporting on it, and you don't have to bring in a panel of people to talk about what he said and then to argue about if it was racist. It was. But we don't need to keep covering it. It's like report the news and then report the other news, because there's plenty of terrible things happening, and we're not covering it.
Do you think it's also the consumers? Like, we're kind of feeding on this negativity a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, it's a bad cycle that we're in. I mean, it's one of the reasons I don't watch a lot of news, and I like seek it out. Like, I mean, I watch like BBC and people that like, I mean, the British report the most boring news.
There's always funny news. Like, there's always something on Elton John on BBC.
There's always something a little funny, but like they report the news. They don't bring in 12 different people to talk about it. They don't bring on someone that they know is going to say something terrible that then they can report on that for the next hour. I think we got to like separate ourselves from the bad news, like the people that are doing like the news circus versus like the actual informative news. And yeah, I mean, we have to take responsibility for that too. It's like, make sure you're not supporting the shows that are kind of just making a profit off of this and doing it as almost like entertainment rather than informative.
I know you don't watch a lot of news, but your show is informative and it's topical, and you're not just telling jokes, you're telling people about current events. So do you feel a responsibility to that?
I don't think there should ever be a responsibility in comedy. We are clowns. Like we're not. I get people being like, "You're just an ignorant clown," and I'm like, "Yes, that is what we are." We're not the ones that are supposed to be responsible here. The responsibility is on people in the actual news, people in government, people they are the ones that should be responsible. Our job is to make fun of everything that's happening. We're the ones that are supposed to push the envelope and, make you maybe see things from a different perspective. But if you're getting your news from a comedy show, it means the news is failing us terribly.
I know. I think that pressure has shifted, perhaps because Trump has targeted us all as being fake news, and you guys are like, hey, I'm just still a clown, you know what I mean? So do you think it's partly Trump saying those sort of things?
I do think him calling the news fake news, it's not good. It's still up to the news to be like, okay, let's just go past all the BS and just focus on, our job and what we're supposed to be doing.
Do you think it's hard in your show and in your stand-ups to change people's minds? Or is it hard to reach people you think that have already decided they don't like Michelle Wolf and what you stand for?
I think comedy at its best, it's not what you want to hear, it's what you didn't know you wanted to hear. So even the people that come there being like, that come as fans, like, I don't want it to just be some sort of echo chamber. Like, I try to think of things from like a very different perspective and like something a take I've never heard before, which means you have to throw out a lot of stuff. Even my biggest fans, I want them to be like, I never thought of it like that before. Even the people that like me, I want them to maybe at some points in the show be like, I don't know if I like her.
So you like to be challenged. You like
to
be challenged.
Yeah.
What is one of the most challenging things a fan has said to you that made you really think and go, they have a point?
We made a joke about, it was about Batman, the George Clooney Batman, his Batman costume had nipples on it. And we made a joke about him always having hard nipples and Hillary always having hard nipples. And someone was like, I was a fan until you made fun of Hillary's nipples. And I was like, oh, that's where you draw your line in the sand? I was like, did you draw it with Hillary's nipples? So sometimes I feel like a lot of times when people go after you for a joke, it's because they didn't really listen to the joke. I always say, don't bring your baggage into my joke. This is my point of view. It's not your point of view. It's just mine. I can't account for everybody and everything. I can only account for myself. So a lot of times when people push against a joke, I'm like, no. don't bring your baggage into it. Look at it. Stop hearing like a trigger word and then just like not listening to the rest of what I said. There's plenty of times where you set up a joke and like I have a joke where I was like, I hate gay men, and someone goes, no, and I'm like, yeah, no, I'm gonna say I'm gonna get you back. I didn't become a comedian just so I could go up on stage one day and say, I hate gay men, bye-bye. It's like there will be a second part of that joke that will win you back over and prove that I don't actually hate gay men.
So it's just like it's like taking a moment, like letting you finish the joke.
Yeah.
But do you think it's like, even in the last couple of years, people are a little more heightened? Like I've even noticed, I've been here 7 years, the last couple of years, everyone's back's a little more arched and ready to attack and hostile. Do you feel like that as well?
Oh yeah, I mean, we are in outrage culture right now. That's our favorite pastime. It's overtaken baseball. We just love to be outraged. Like you will hear a thing and just be like, I can do it today. I have something to tweet about. It's just you gotta take a minute and be like, all right, first of all, who said this? Oh, a comedian. All right, well, first of all, then throw it up. But it's also like, did you actually listen to what they said? And are you bringing your own personal baggage into this conversation? And normally if it's a comedian, you can be like, all right, well, yeah, I should have not taken that seriously.
Is there one issue you feel like it's happening on repeat that people keep getting like angry about or like are sensitive about?
In my special, I do a joke about how moms are better than dads, which I think is fair. Yeah. And I remember I had a couple of men tweet at me being like, I can't believe you'd say that. I'm unfollowing you. And I'm like, okay, that's fine.
Did it take a while to build that thick skin? I mean, even hearing this, I'm a bit hurt for you. Like, it doesn't just happen that you have that kind of thick skin. So what did you kind of do to make sure that this sort of shit just rolls off your back?
Well, it's really like, I mean, if you're going to say, it is on you. Like, if you're going to say something that people could take the wrong way, it's on you to just be like, yeah, I know how I meant it, and I can't convince you otherwise. Internet arguments are the most useless thing that has maybe ever happened, because people are coming in with their own very strong convictions, and it's not a good place to change someone's mind. So I just never engage. It's not worth it to me. And so, and I don't look at a lot of social media, not anymore, especially not anymore. You might be surprised that there's quite a few trolls out there.
What is your advice with the trolls? I know you say don't engage, but is there any other pieces of advice you'd give people watching perhaps that are getting bullied at school or online? It seems to be a pattern that's just getting bigger in momentum.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's hard because, everything is happening online now. But like, it's really important to have human conversations and human connections. Like, even if you're like some sort of like influencer or something on Instagram. Sorry, I really respect influencers. Everyone that follows you, they're not your actual friend, you know, like it's important to have human connections and to like know that like the people that you have like real relationships and like, like real conversations with actual humans. Like online bullying is like very serious and it's really crappy thing that people do, but like get offline and talk to real people and make real connections and don't live your life in front of a screen.
It's so true. We're constantly like this. Someone called me the other day and I was like, I didn't even know how to talk on the phone anymore. Yeah. It's so weird and I don't know how we can get back to this. Like even this is so special. Like it's human interaction that rarely happens. Yeah. We don't have our phones with us. Like when else would this happen?
I know. And that's like it's a concerted effort I've started to make where it's like I call my friends, like I try to actually have real conversations. And I have some friends that will like, if I pull out my phone, they'll be like, get your phone out of here. What are you doing? I am talking to you now. And I'm like, thanks. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. And finally, I know you're done talking about the White House Correspondents' dinner, so I'm not going to ask about it. But knowing all you know that what it did for your career, who would you recommend for the job next?
I mean, it was the most disgusting room I've ever been in. Yeah, I remember seeing Jeff Zucker and Kellyanne Conway like hugging, and I was just like, oh, this is gross. This is the problem. Like, they are having a good time and we are all suffering because of this. I wouldn't want anyone else to have to go through that. Also, I mean, the food was bad.
You had like fish or something, right?
There was monkfish and like this weird like,
What's monkfish? I've never even heard of that.
I don't know. It wasn't good. I mean, I don't think anyone that's ever done it either would be like, oh, I can't wait to do it again.
You think it's a one and done kind of thing?
It's a one and done kind of thing. And yeah, I mean, there was the one guy that was sitting next to me on my right. He was like, I watched your special. You're kind of vulgar. And I was like, no, I'm not. Not compared to like other men, you know?
Yeah.
So I was just, the whole thing was gross.
What is it like having, your Correspondents' dinner as a commercial and in Fox and Friends every week?
First of all, I like the Republicans are like, look at this Democrat, and I'm like, first, I don't identify as a Democrat because I am productive. But you want to call me unhinged, you want to say I'm evil, I'm like, whatever, you're promoting my show. Good for you.
So it doesn't bother you in the slightest?
It doesn't bother me at all. I mean, like, if you actually watch Fox and Friends and you're like, this was a good segment, I don't want you as a fan.
It's wild that people still watch that show.
Yeah, I mean, one of the guys on it used to want to be a comedian, and, it's a bunch of people sitting on a couch saying terribly awful things and pretending that they're Christians. And then, like, there's the Megyn Kellys of the world that, like, used to do that and now are like, I've moved on. And then she has Alex Jones on her show, it's just, everything they do is for ratings and to cause a commotion. And, I try not to be participatory in it. That's why I don't even talk about them on the show, because I'm like, it's not worth it. I don't want to give them attention.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. And don't forget, Michelle doesn't have a dress yet for the Emmys, so if we have designers watching, call her. Thank you so much for coming in, Michelle.
Thank you so much for having me.
That was so funny.